This is year 2 for a pilot program in Cincinnati to reduce the number of deer. And here to give us an update on the Clifton Deer program are Lori Briggs, one of the founders of Clifton Deer, and Vicki DiNicola, Vice President and Operations Manager of White Buffalo Incorporated, a contractor for the program. You can be part of our discussion at 513-419-7100. You can email talk@wvxu.org, or you can find us on Facebook or Twitter. And Lori and Vicki, thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.
Lori, give us some background about Clifton Deer and why this program was started in the first place.
Right. Well, thanks, Mark. We started as a citizen initiative, 100 deer in that square mile, and it's obviously a pretty built up. There's not a whole lot of land, so that is, I think, by most standards, would be considered overpopulation.
What are the boundaries of that one square mile area that you're talking about?
It is I-75, Clifton Avenue, and Ludlow Avenue. So it's basically Gaslight section of Clifton.
Mm-hmm. Vicki, tell us about the process. How does this work?
Well, we started working with Lori, and they did a lot of the initial proposal writing, got the permit, and then we show up each year. Basically, Lori's been out setting up and looking at the deer that are in the area, setting up bait sites, and then we're basically there for 3 or 4 nights capturing animals and bringing them to a surgical facility, and a local veterinarian is conducting the ovariectomies, and then we put them back out into the field and recover them. And then we've done work this year to estimate the population again.
So ovariectomy, what exactly is that, Vicki?
We're removing the ovaries.
Okay, and how does that compare to, say, sterilizing a domestic animal, a dog or a cat?
So typically when you take your dog or cat into the spade, they're basically removing the entire uterus. So it's more like not a hysterectomy, but you're removing the ovaries and the uterus.
So it's fair to say
we're just removing the ovaries.
This is less invasive then, I take it.
Yeah, it's less invasive. I mean, it's still an open abdominal surgery. There's a very small incision that's typically about 4 inches on the abdomen.
So how many deer have been sterilized so far?
Year 1, we handled 36 animals, and this year we handled 10.
I think the year 1 it was 41, and this year 10.
Okay, so fewer this year. What were some of the obstacles as far as doing this, Lori, that you came across?
Well, the interesting thing is we are trying to cooperate with Mother Nature, but it doesn't always cooperate with us.
Mother Nature can be very unpredictable, yes.
Yes. So our big obstacle this year was acorns, which I never thought about acorns before, but acorns are a favorite food of deer. And as Vicki said, we set up bait stations for the capture specialists, the darters, to come in and dart the deer. And we put corn there. And the deer this year were not very interested in our corn because they had this bumper crop of acorns. So we kind of regrouped. We were going to do this in late November, early December. We regrouped and said, we've got to wait for them to go through all the acorns so they're actually hungry and will eat corn. And pushed it back, by a couple of weeks into January. And then they were a little more hungry and a little more cooperative and coming to our bait stations. So, and the other obstacle is weather. It's been a very rainy, mild winter. So we ended up with some soggy volunteers this year, but in the end, it all worked out.
Mm-hmm. How much does it cost to do this, Lori?
The cost is, there's a lot of upfront cost. We've spent between the 2 years so far about $60,000. It's all privately raised donor money, not city money. But we were really pleased because our cost was about cut in half between year 1 and year 2. And over time, we hope to reduce our costs even further for a couple of reasons. First of all, you only have to sterilize each doe once, so you are going to be handling fewer and fewer animals each year. The other thing is that we are working to train local people who will do some of the professional functions for free. For example, White Buffalo started trying to train a retired police officer this year in the darting function, and he's willing to volunteer his time. So we hope that over the next couple of years, as we get local people trained to take over some of these functions, our costs will really become very manageable.
Mm-hmm. Vicki, how smoothly does it go to do this? I mean, do you encounter any problems like a deer getting hurt or anything in the whole process, or does it run pretty smoothly most of the time?
Most of the time it runs pretty smoothly. There's a lot that can go wrong that we protect against, so we have to be very focused when we're in the field, but we didn't have any issues this year.
Yeah, how many places in the country is this type of program in place?
We're in 9 different sites right now.
Mm-hmm. So what are
each of them has their own unique, sort of unique setting.
So you've got some places that are urban, some places I guess that might be rural, suburban, different. So that's what you mean by different settings?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have some that have hunting in nearby areas, some that are more urban than others, some that are in closed office campuses. And so really we're looking to understand the impact of severely reducing fertility on a deer population and what happens with immigration, where we see permanent immigration that replaces the animals that do die, what happens with dispersal, animals that leave the area, and looking at that in different settings.
Yeah, a question for each of you. Do you think that sterilization alone is going to be enough to reduce deer overpopulation in the Cincinnati area in particular? Do you think it's going to be the sole effective method?
I'll start. I think that that there is no one size fits all solution for every community. We are still in early days of this project, but it looks so far, and Vicki can speak to this, like we are seeing some effect in reduction, even though we've only been in the field just finished our second season. But there may be areas where this doesn't work or where the community would prefer hunting. I think that this provides another tool in the toolbox for communities and the park board, and each community in conjunction with the regulators needs to decide what they want, whether they prefer hunting, whether hunting is going to be effective, whether they prefer this approach, whether this is going to be effective.
Mm-hmm. Vicki, did you want to weigh in?
Yep. No, Lori is absolutely right. So there are areas where this simply can't and won't work. We need a road network. We need deer that are accessible to be able to dart them. And there are areas where housing is too densely populated and people simply won't be comfortable with hunters or culling or, so there's sort of physical limitations to any of the methods. And then there are also sort of the human factors issues to consider. What does the community want? So I think exactly as Lori said, this is another tool in the toolkit potentially.
If I can just add on to that, this goes to both the kind of cost issue and whether this makes sense for a community. One of the things we really like about this for Clifton is that in areas where there is bow hunting, the parks for public safety reasons have to close areas of the park for sometimes extended periods of time to give access to the hunters and not potentially harm humans out walking their dogs or hiking. And we've been able to keep the Clifton area parks, which are heavily utilized by the community, open. So that's just another, factor for communities to consider in terms of what works for their community.
Now, what's the overall goal for Clifton Deer? What are you trying? How much reduction are you trying to achieve?
Well, we want to get the population down to an eco-sustainable level. And what does that mean? That means a level that will allow forest regrowth in Rawson Woods and Edgewood Grove and Mount Storm Park. A level that the community, sort of has social acceptance for. People get upset about deer eating their hostas and things like that. So I don't know exactly what that number is, but our goal is to get it down to get it down to where we in the park board can look at it and say, yeah, this is eco-sustainable and that the community is comfortable with. We know that the 100 we started with was too many. Hopefully we'll see first stabilization, and Vicki can talk to this, but stabilization means that mortalities exceed births and immigration, and then most communities are going to see a 10 or 20% reduction, so gradual reduction over time when you get up to a high level of the does not giving birth.
Okay. Vicki?
And that is actually what we're seeing in the numbers. I've spent the last few days crunching some camera trap data that has come back from the field that Lori's been really instrumental in providing. The number of fawns per doe dropped from 0.74 to 0.10. And then we've lost a few animals to mortalities or dispersal, and we've seen very limited immigration. And so we're looking at roughly a 10 to 15% decline over last year.
So how much longer? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Vicki.
Nope. Go ahead.
Oh, finished. How much longer will the program be running?
Well, our arrangement with the park board, the collaboration is a 5-year pilot program. So, and we have a 3-year permit from the state wildlife division. They don't give permits for longer than 3 years. So even though it's a 5-year pilot program, they give us a 3-year permit. So in 2018, we'll be going back asking for renewal of that. So we're hoping it goes at least 5 years. And, we're eager to see the results. And I know the park board is looking to look at the results to see whether it makes sense to continue it after that.
So when's the next round of sterilizations? When's that going to happen again?
It would be either this coming December or, depending on, again, Mother Nature and acorns and
whether all those things cooperate or not.
Exactly.
We watch the trees.
So are you pretty optimistic this is going to have a good effect, though, Lori?
We're really pleased. As Vicki said, we're already seeing, not only stabilization, but a 10 to 15% reduction after 1 year. We think that's remarkably good news. We are wanting to be very evidence-based, so we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. The numbers will be what the numbers are, but we're really optimistic, and we're thrilled with the level of community support, both donors and volunteers. So it is it's kind of a labor of love for those of us who founded it, and we're cautiously optimistic.
How important are the volunteers to this whole thing?
Oh, they're really crucial. I should say that we would be absolutely nowhere without White Buffalo. Vicki and Tony DiNicola and their team are remarkable professionals, and so all the volunteers in the world wouldn't make up for that. But there are so many things that volunteers handle, tending the bait stations, making meals for the team. We have volunteers who actually literally put the sedated deer on stretchers and carry them from the field, in the dark, in the woods, in the cold, back to the surgical center, and then back again. We even had volunteers who walked Vicky and Tony's little dog who travels with them. So, it's been wonderful, the level of volunteer support. We have a lot of UC students who are very excited about this program, and it's been great to have that sort of youth component of our program.
The youthful energy always helps.
Exactly, especially 3:00 in the morning. It really helps.
So I take it you're always looking for help on this project.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay. What's the website for your organization?
It's cliftondeer.org.
Okay, and we have a link to that at WVXU.org as well. And Lori and Vicki, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Lori Briggs, one of the founders of CliftonDeer.org, and Vicki DiNicola, Vice President and Operations Manager of White Buffalo Incorporated.